Welcome to Masculinity and Femininity United. My name is Maria Appelqvist.
My name is Frank Lavuda.
And we are here to deepen in the conversation around what it means to be in your full power as a woman and as a man. And also how to understand the concepts of masculinity and femininity. Today today we're going to speak about
reality.
Reality. That was quite funny, Frank, when we talked about that topic and you suggested reality. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I had the topic in a Spanish group the whole month and think it's interesting. I want to talk a bit about my experience with the reality of a woman and the reality of man, which is quite different in my experience. Well, let's start with reality in itself. Deepak Chopra defined it like that your brain is making an imagine out of the five senses, out of the electric impulse, what you receive of the five senses. And of course, out of the programs you have received in your childhood, they're still working in your subconsciousness. And of course, of your own experiences and let's say recordings, what you made by the time. So the reality is not a thing which is real for all of us, but especially for you. And to start the discussion, probably, I found a difference between men and women in that form that if you make a contract or an according, the man says something and that's his word, and his word is something which is fixed, which is what's it called? Which is the truth in this moment if you have an according. And with the women, I found that the according is always variable, because the thinking of the according of last week, of last month, or other moment, always is adopted to what is the reality in this moment. So the past gets accomplished with the present. And that drives a man really crazy, because we said that and that yesterday, and today is another thing. I had that experience. I think with nearly every woman I was together with, and especially in business, if you don't have a written contract where it says what was accorded, it's always what they are thinking now, not what they have been thinking in the moment of their accordation. Okay, so what do you think about that, Maria?
This was like a pinpointing on conversations we have had, because I think you probably have perceived that I have changed my mind during the time.
Yeah, of course, we had something going on, for example, and next day there's entering, let's say, a fear, or let's say a doubt or something, and no, we can't do it like that, or something like this, no? So
okay,
I recognize that the emotional status in that moment enters in that according of last week, for example, or for last month, or something like that.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you saying is that women, so when a man says something that is true for him, that's really reliable over time, while a woman might emotionally be somewhere else next week, and then she changed her mind.
Yeah. Yes, she maybe not change her mind completely, but some parts of it are not faded out, and some parts are especially important in that moment.
I think you're right. I think you're right. That's why I'm laughing, because in some way I think I recognize myself. So I think you're right. And I think maybe that's how the feminine operate, because the feminine wants to be in the flow. And the feminine doesn't have an agenda, like this is the goal and this is the agenda we're holding. I think the feminine is much more fluctuation in a way, and flexible, and adjust and adapt, which means that, okay, so now this week this opened up, so then we might bring in that, and that can be, from the masculine point of view, that can be perceived as something of changing your mind, changing direction, or being emotional. And I think that's the essence of the feminine. I remember when I was operating much more from my masculine mode. So because the masculine is very, here's the goal, here's what we are achieving, and I was like pushing hard and very focused on that. And I'm still seeing a lot of women are doing that in business, for instance. I'm finding that being a more masculine way of how you handle your business. And I do think there is a feminine way where you're more open, more fluid, more embracing on what's happening in the moment. And which means you play with that. So I'm going to take this example. So tomorrow we're going to do a workshop. So we're doing, I'm here in California, and we haven't really managed to reach out to people, but we're going to do this afternoon and just bring people in here in order to connect with people. And the whole co-creation of that happens from where we are right now. And I think we can do it because we're two women that are doing it. When I think for a man, like the masculine, if we would be in our masculine energy, this would be hardly very, very difficult to handle, because you can't control the process. And you would feel very, how can I say it? Like it's scary to, like the day before, not having any people and thinking you're going to sign up people in. So and actually I can hear the masculine part of me would say, like, this is useless. Don't do it. You need to launch a couple of weeks in advance, right? But the feminine in me say, no, let's just play with this and see how much people we actually can bring into room and start a new kind of conversation. So I think the feminine is more ad hoc, more fluid, more in the moment. And that can be perceived as emotional. I'm not sure if it is emotional, really. I think it's about what you're saying, being present with what's happening now and how you're feeling right now.
The problem that we have as a man, if there are contracts or something like that, so in my experience, later if the business don't work out, we are the culpable. And of course, we have, as men, we have a great problem to complete our word. if I don't complete my word, I'm not reliable, for example. No, so of course, if I'm driving the car with a woman and we both have a steering wheel, that will be really complicated.
Exactly.
By the way, with Maria, it is not.
It's not.
With you, it's not. Either you have plenty of masculine and me plenty of feminine, or I don't know why. But I think it's also a thing of being transparent.
Yeah.
Of being authentic.
Yes, and here's the thing is, so when you have access to your both masculine and feminine, irrespective if you're a man or woman, and of course, I think for women, in order to have a balance, you need to embrace your feminine, and I think men need to embrace their masculine. And then when you embrace that, you can connect. So you are more equal, like you're integrated in your masculine and feminine, and in that way you can also play and interact with someone. So for instance, which happens between you and me, Frank, that sometimes I'm in the masculine structure holders and other times you are. But here's the thing I wanted to add to that perception on reality, because the feminine is the emotional, there is this I think and I think here's where a lot of relationships goes into problem, is that a man don't know how to handle the feminine. So when the feminine gets emotional, or when the feminine starts to ramble, like I was doing this early morning, right? And I know I'm doing it. So what happened was I started to rambling because I was frustrated, and I was like, and then Frank say, "Stop it, stop it." It's like, okay, and I think that is the courage most men don't have, is to. I know that Nicole Dedon, she used to talk about that a woman wants to be penetrated. That penetration happens sexually, but it's also in when she ramble and she gets like that emotional and like totally confusing, like someone, stop it. and I mean it's the same. I used to have a coaching client who was very much in her feminine, and in order to be capable of even having a conversation with her, I had to say stop. I had to really segregate my masculine in order to hold her, and then she had a great coaching out of that. But if I would be in my feminine, I couldn't coach her because it don't work, right? So there is this understanding where people are and where they're coming from. You can adjust to that some needs to be penetrated, so you need to be in your masculine, and other time you need to be in your feminine softness, because they are penetrating the whole time. They are in that mood of being very direct, controlling, having all that forceful energy. If you're stepping into that, it's going to be a conflict. So
exactly,
adjust. And I think this is the kind of conversation most people don't have around this. And I think it creates problem in relationships.
Exactly. And I think there is a point for also the mastermind to learn to balance these two energies in you, and be conscious, or like you said, Astrid, aware about where are you, where am I in that moment, and maybe you also perceive where is the other in that moment, and adjust that.
Here we got a good question from Astrid about when it comes to decision making, is it a difference for men and women how we take decisions?
I think it's very much a difference, because if you focused, if you're in your or male power, masculine power, there's not much influence of the shall I or shall I not, shall I or shall I not. There's a thing, and or you go for it or you don't go for it.
And the feminine. So the feminine is, so just imagine the feminine is, how should I be dressed today? And you have a lot of clothes and you bring it all out and you're trying it on.
Yeah, the feminine power is more trying to look at it from different points, and maybe also try to feel it from different points, and that takes time.
Exactly.
Of course, I'm personally not such a great decision maker, so it takes me time sometimes, and maybe this decision is more from the fear, or from Astrid says he will buy another clothes now.
Yes, I think there is. Well, and I think that is basically what happens with the feminine energy, is that it has more different perspectives when they make a decision. So it takes longer time, and they take more things into consideration, and maybe that's a part of, again, like bringing in other aspects into the decision making, while the masculine would be either or, much more. So let's see what is coming up, and then I go out and buy another clothing. Yeah, women have a more holistic view of reality. Maybe we do. I don't know. I mean, I've always been this kind of holistic system thinker. I think a lot of men are too.
I think it's not so holistic, but if you think about that. A female cat, for example, or a female chicken has to control the surroundings to protect their chicks, their little ones. So it's more amplified perception than a holistic perception.
So is this something about so the feminine wants to be in control of the space?
Exactly.
Well, in the same.
And the masculine goes for the
hunting.
What's it called? Goes for hunting, yeah, and goes after the rabbit, for example, no?
Well, the feminine wants to have that protected area, so that's why. Oh, so maybe that's why also. Okay, so let's talk about feeling of belonging, because maybe this is why relationships becomes more important for a lot of women, because that belonging or that feeling of belonging is connected to some wholeness, while for men or the masculine, the longing for freedom, like being out directive is.
Yeah.
So it's
the women wants to hunt a man, and this man has to give her the security, like we had in the when we spoke about relationships 2 or 3 weeks ago. And of course he's the protector or the fighter. He could fight the other the enemies who could come, and on with the same time the nurturer. Who goes for hunting and brings the food, so that she can be in a protected space and look after the children, or look after the chicks. You know? That's a basic principle, I think, of the difference between woman and man. We talked about that 3 weeks ago. No?
Yeah, and I think exactly, even though we're living in a modern society, that that like tribal or what you say primordial behavior that is part of your brain, is part of your limbic system.
Exactly.
It's there, like it's in the core of you. So even though we think we live in a cultural context where we have other values of equality, like deep in our core, like in our bones, in our subliminal, your subconsciousness, there is where you actually have those, your longings and those feelings. They are there, but since we are not aware of them, we also suppress them, and as a result we might not end up in the relationships we find being satisfying enough, because what we longing, like what we deep inside is yearning for, is still hidden for us. And I think that's why I think understanding more about the masculinity and femininity, it helps us reveal ourselves for ourselves. And it comes in mirror with the ultimate, of course, it comes with a mirror, in the mirror with a partner who can help us see it.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, the mirror thing is a great thing. We have to talk about in a separate webinar, because we could run out of the time.
Yes, we are running out of time.
But I think it's the awareness again, what we had in the beginning, and the awareness where I am in that moment. And of course, there are basic needs, and if we know the basic needs, like Tony Robbins said, we had that the other day. I put it in the group. A lady needs a reason for to have sex, and man need only a place.
Yeah, here
So
and Astrid is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Astrid is actually asking if the male and female brain are differently, and yes, they are. And I think this is the advantage of new research and with neuroscience. I mean, neuroscience was established in 2001, so it's still a very new science. But we know now through fMRI scanning, there's new evidence around the differences between the male and female brain, and what you're saying. Right now have the different perception of how to see sex, for instance. That's something that a neuroscientist can explain through understanding of your brain. So it's super, super interesting to see that it's, I mean, I'm a sociologist myself. I would never even think I would talk about biological differences because I think we're also socially constructed, but I know from my personal experience, you remember I've done 500 hours of orgasmic meditation. I know from my physical experience that I'm a biology. I have a sex. My sex is the feminine expression. And I wasn't in contact with that before. So it's time to wrap up and say something about what's next, Frank.
What's next? The mastermind. Okay. We start the mastermind in November, depending, of course, if we have people signed up or not. So I think we have to change the time for next week. This webinar, if we get some people signed up, and importantly, of course, we have much more time in the mastermind, not only for content, but for questions and direct coaching. So you can use, let's say, the content, the difference, what we took today or we entered in the sexuality. So we can talk and we can teach you about that on one hand, and on the other hand, guide you through a process if it's necessary or if you like it. And I have to say, if we make a guidance or hot seat, like we told it in with my master. And I think Osho had it the same like that. So we working with one person, but we're working with all on the same time. And that's the pleasure on this thing, because mostly the problems we have, and I have to say a problem is only a covered potential of you. That's my experience. The problems are common. The problems are not only yours. The others have similar things, have similar approaches, or have similar problems.
Exactly.
And when we discover the hidden potential behind the problem with one person, we can do it with all at the same time.
And here's what makes our mastermind.
There we enter in the holistic thing. No?
Yeah, exactly. And you're actually having the two of us. You have the masculine and feminine perspective, which usually in other settings you're having one teacher. So here you will have the both of us, and how we complement each other in different ways, with everything from science to tarot card readings to so it's really on all these different layers how we see this coming together. So if this is for you, there is page, you find it under this video, and just or contact me or Frank, because if you're here, you know us, so contact us and let us know if you're interested to be part of the mastermind. Okay, so with that, we ending the recording for today.
And there's also, sorry I interrupt you, there's also an open Facebook group. So if you're interested about news, about contacting each other, you can enter in this open Facebook group and get more information, or even ask if you don't want to contact one of us directly. So you can ask there and also put some input or whatever you want. And we will create a private Facebook group especially for the mastermind, for the people that signed up to conversate something more private and have their interchanging directly in the, also let's say during the week when we are not on the call. The call will be 90 minutes, not 30 we like here, or 40 like we always do. Will be 90 minutes, so we have plenty more time for special things.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it for today. See you next week.